Welcome back to another episode of PodPaca. Today we are with another special guest. You may remember that earlier in our podcast, episode 2 with Greg Biba, before we talked to Greg, we mentioned all the teachers that were retiring from the Waupaca School District for May of 22. And we have one of those teachers here today who has taught for more than 30 years. And at the end of her career, she taught second grade at the Waupaca Learning Center. Please welcome Lisa Andersen, the PodPaca.
Hi, Joe. Hi, Tim. Thank you for having me.
I didn't realize you'd been teaching for over 30 years. What did you start when you were like 12?
Thank you. I knew I liked you guys for a reason. 32 years. I started in 1991. Yeah, and I started out teaching kindergarten. I taught kindergarten for 4 years and then got promoted. No, it's not true. And then I just started teaching second grade.
Were you always in Waupaca
Yes, always Waupaca.
and always at the Learning Center, not the chain school?
The Learning Center, yes. I student taught at Westwood.
Oh, where's that at?
It was kind of behind Pick and Save, where Pick and Save
Oh.
used to be, the old Pick and Save, now Goodwill. So kind of back there. I think it's a church now.
Oh, I know what she's talking about.
Oh, yeah, I don't, that's closed now. Okay.
Yes. They used to have smaller schools, Riverside, Westwood. So then just opened up Waupaca Learning Center.
When did the Learning Center open up?
I think it was 1990.
Oh, and yeah, because that building's quite huge and that houses preschool through fourth grade now, and it used to be till fifth grade. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of room in there, and then fifth grade went to the middle school for Waupaca.
Yeah, well, and the middle school used to be the high school. So we had middle school at WLC.
So why did you want to go into teaching in the first place?
It's just something as a child growing up in Milwaukee. I used to live in Milwaukee. My friends and I down in the basement used to play school. So that was just something that I always enjoyed, had fun, and would set up a whole school setting and pretended I was the teacher, and just always enjoyed and had fun doing that. And I said, you know what, that was always what I envisioned that I would do forever. And I accomplished that. So
Was Waupaca your first choice of where you wanted to teach, or did you choose it from many options?
no, that was my first choice. And then when I was able to, or was granted to student teach there, I just fell in love with it and was hoping that I would get hired there. And thankfully I was.
So did you always want to teach elementary school students, or did you try all ages, and how did you find where you wanted to be at? Because I know a lot of different teachers have a lot of different preferences as far as the age groups they want to teach.
Yep, great question. My major, I started out was early childhood education because I just loved the little ones. It was kind of the thing back then, was early childhood. And I started out teaching kindergarten and loved it, but then found out that I couldn't go past kindergarten. So I knew that there were some openings coming up in second grade. And I thought, I think second grade is where I want to be at. Not that kindergarten wasn't rewarding, because it most definitely was, and I loved it. But I did start out part-time in kindergarten and wanted full-time. So the administrator at that time said, well, if you want to student, because I had to student teach while I was teaching kindergarten,
Oh,
which
wow.
I'm not sure is heard of now, but it was back then. So I taught under one of my very good friends now, under Mrs. Harrington. And so I did half a day student teaching under her, and it was a wonderful experience and learned a lot from her. And then a second grade position open, couple doors down from where I was teaching kindergarten, and got hired and loved it.
How many kids do you normally teach then in that second grade class?
Well, it varies from year to year, but the lowest is usually around 15, and then it can go up to 18.
So that's a lot, and you get to be with these kids all day.
Mhm.
And how do you stay in charge while still being likable and finding that balance?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, there's never a dull day in teaching. To find the balance and to, I feel, get the most out of kids is making it fun. And that's just my philosophy. Everybody else has a different philosophy and what works for them best. But I tried to be funny, make it light. I felt like making my lessons real engaging and fun, and bring it down to their level, and just, I think that's how I felt I worked best and could get the most out of, it's just such a rewarding job, and you can be creative with your lessons and gear it towards, every year you're going to have a different group of students, and you kind of get to know the makeup of that class, and what you can do, and get the most out of each and every day. And each and every day is different,
Mm.
but I think if you just keep it light, keep it fun. I always tried to really talk to my students, make it like, make them feel important. And they always liked hearing about, you know, adults days, so I tried to tell them exactly what was going on in my life. And, I did this with the family or went here. And then I think they just felt a little bit more relaxed and comfortable. And it seemed to work for me. So that's kind of how I geared things each and every day, is just try to make it fun.
I think that's the right way to look at things, is to have fun and also to talk to them like they're
Right.
adults pretty much. Just,
Yeah.
you
Let
know,
them know they're important, and they they want to come back every day, because that's where they need to be.
well, yeah, that's really important. And was there any subjects that you mostly focused on, or did you do everything?
I loved teaching reading. That was my, because all the subjects are important, but reading and math are, especially, I feel, so important. And when they'd come in, if someone was struggling at, blending letters or sounds, or I just, it was kind of like an aha, moment, or just seeing their eyes light up when it will just connect. So reading was most fun for me, and you could find so many fun and unique and different lessons to incorporate. And reading is all across the board, so it kind of sets up for the other subjects.
So, have you, with the reading, because I wonder this as time goes on and you taught for so long, do you think that kids got smarter throughout second grade for over the years and the reading levels went up and all of that, because it somewhat seems like these days that kids are able to catch on quicker, they're smarter than ever, especially with technology.
Mhm.
So, do you
True.
think that the reading level average goes up, or the kids are smarter in your class later in your
Yeah,
career instead of earlier?
most definitely, because, and I for sure could see that because I did teach kindergarten. And I think that's why I might have wanted to switch a little bit, is partly because at that time, I wanted to teach more of the skills in reading, and not that kindergarten, back when I first started, a big part of kindergarten was dramatic play. And so, which we incorporated lessons and things into that, setting up different centers that would have math, reading, science, social studies. But then it did shift, to workbooks and the, more testing and, um, they're little ones. And I think I just wanted to teach a little bit of a higher grade level so I could do, more of those reading lessons and delve in a little bit more.
So kids in all areas seem to be smarter later in your career, or just some, like some areas?
Yeah, I think all all the kids.
Oh yeah, I didn't mean like some of the kids were smarter. I meant like,
No, I know what you meant, like that I've seen a shift and a change that there, yeah, well, there's more to cover. It's what we call standards, standards based. And um, yeah, there's a lot of work that's being done with improving, every single year. They're changing things and adding more things. And so,
so how have you had to adapt to the times over your career with your teaching? Have you had to teach in different styles? Uh,
yes.
and did each kid have a laptop for your grade to work
No,
on?
no, that just came about in the recent years. Each student had, when I left this past year, each student had their own Chromebook, um, to work on. And so, and I hear of some of the other school districts, but Waupaca is so fortunate, especially for a little community to, I seeing the kids succeed and progress, but it's just Waupaca really stays up with the times, and they, just do their best to make sure that every child is succeeding. And um, I just was so proud and fortunate. I mean, to be able to go into your job every single day, and I mean that wholeheartedly and truthfully, that honestly, there was never a day where I went, "Ugh, I have to go in to work." I literally wanted to go in to my job every single day. And um, I would never miss. I mean, I'm not teaching anymore right now, but I can admit this is kind of a funny. I remember one day being so sick, and if parents would have even known, but I had strep throat, and I wasn't sure because I hadn't gone in yet, but I'm like, oh, I'm sick, but I just didn't want to miss. I think there was something going on. And I it seemed like I never wanted to be away from my students, my colleagues, I mean, I just loved it. One of those jobs where you're thankful that you can just say that I loved each and every day, each and every year. Um, and I mean that wholeheartedly.
Did you have pretty
So,
good support?
I did, yeah. I mean, I think we all did. Waupaca was just, I feel wonderful. I have made so many friendships. When I left my second grade team, we just all got along. I love each and every one of them. The administrators, I started out with Mr. Simonson, and just a wonderful, wonderful man, and just supportive. And I can't say enough. Well, then, you happen to think, oh gosh, I hope that this next administrator coming in is going to be just as good. Mr. Ersbommer, excellent to work for, wonderful. And then Mrs. Pankratz, the assistant principal, came on, and they're just fabulous, just fabulous. I can't say enough on the support. You know, if you ever need to talk to them, or in fact, everybody who taught at WLC, I terribly miss. I mean, they're just a wonderful team. I think everybody truly gets along. You know, it's even like the office, the secretaries, the nurse, the technology team, you know, the lunch ladies, the librarians, it just goes on and on. Our social workers, I can't say enough. It's a team, it's a group effort, and to feel so much love and support, and to know that everybody is truly there for the kids.
I'm
Good.
glad you brought up all those people because I think we have been doing better as a society of saying thank you to teachers, but we
Right.
haven't really said, oh, thank you to the lunch ladies, thank you to the guidance counselors at the schools, thank you to the
And I forgot bus
administrative
drivers.
staff. Yeah, bus drivers as well.
Mhm.
Yes, those are very important.
Yeah,
Uh,
so many
so much.
custodians. I mean, the list is just endless.
This episode is presented by Northern Kitchen. Northern Kitchen is a brand new store that is in Lucky Tree's family of stores on Main Street in downtown Waupaca. This new kitchen store is on the corner in the last block on North Main Street. It looks fantastic in there. There are lots of great kitchen gadgets that you cannot find anywhere else in the area. Make sure to shop at Northern Kitchen on Main Street in Waupaca.
There's so many things that I miss about teaching. You know, the kids connecting with the families, working with the second grade team. When I left, it was the second grade team. They fabulous, phenomenal. Just the relationships, and but there are a couple things that I don't miss, and one of them is recess in the winter.
Oh,
That's one of the things that, because cold, and so I don't miss that. And then sometimes I would be correcting papers or tests till sometimes 10 p.m. at night. Those are
wow.
the only two things that I don't miss, but otherwise everything else, I just totally miss. I was out to eat the other night with my family, and there was a student that came up and said, you know, Mrs. Anderson, and I think he was in his 20s. And you know, I've even been to some weddings, I've been to baby showers, I still am in contact and miss my students.
Let's go back here. You mentioned recess in the winter. That was the first thing you mentioned that you don't miss. Isn't recess chaotic even if it isn't in the winter? Wouldn't it still be, a bit
It is.
troubling?
It is, but it's a fun chaotic. You know, you just try to make sure that everybody's safe and they're not climbing on top of the monkey bars and um, things like that. But it's fun. It's nice to see them interacting with different kids from different classrooms, because that's their time to where they can, talk and play with others that maybe aren't in their classroom. So it's nice to see them developing all those relationships, and fun to see them releasing some energy. And but the winter, and it's freezing and you're shivering, and is, not always fun. You're kind of looking at your watch going, okay, I got 10 more minutes left.
Did you pretty much take summers off then, or did you continue to teach during?
No, I taught summer school quite a bit for many, many, many years, almost every year. But that was fun because it's not just the reading, writing, science. It's not just specific. They would let you come up with um, your own curriculum class slash, like, what was it? Henry and Mudge was one of my favorite books, or Mr. Putter and Tabby was one of my favorite books. And so I would do really fun lessons. Like we'd set up like a camping area where we could do s'mores and this and that. I mean, not a real fire or anything, but like in the classroom, just do fun things while learning.
Some people don't realize that teachers work all year round. They
Mhm.
don't, like some people might think, oh, they have their summers off. That must be nice. Not necessarily. I know you did summer school, but I know other teachers sometimes have a different job completely in the summer. So you guys aren't really off.
No, and for many, many years, we had to take classes, 3 credits, 6 credits, um, to keep up on our teaching license. And so we would take classes in the summer instead of during the school year because it's so busy. And we'd have meetings after school or conferences or whatnot. So to take a class sometimes during the school year was a bit much. So we'd take it during the summer. So yeah, people do think summers off means completely summers off, but you're right, not always the case.
So you had to take courses in the summer. So was that part of whatever was required for you to teach the next year? That wasn't
Yes.
part of a college degree or whatnot?
Nope, to keep up with our license. And yep, that was required for many, many, many years.
Then they stopped.
Yes. And then we'd have to put in professional development, and that could be inside, it had to be outside of the school day. So again, that was either nights, weekends, summer.
What was
So
professional development? It wasn't pretty much the same as continuing ed.
we had to do both pretty much.
I do want to talk about, I know we're changing subjects, but Connor is your son, and I've known Connor for a long time.
Yeah,
We're in the
you're a
same
good friend.
grade. And and did you teach Connor, or did someone else teach Connor in second grade?
Yeah, I did not teach Connor.
Is there a requirement that you can't teach your own kids?
Nope, you could. Yeah, you could. I, I
Okay.
I don't know really why I didn't. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I never really thought of that. And not that I would have given him special privileges. In fact, if anything, I may have been harder on him. So I just wanted to distance that. But I know that there are several teachers that have had their own children and they've done just fine.
So, what was it like teaching that grade though? Because you probably knew some kids in there before the school year started. So,
Yes.
how was that dynamic?
Yeah, I mean that was since you were in the same class and you've been friends with Connor. I mean, to me, I think that was just a wonderful class. Talented class, smart. So it was fun, knowing some of the kids. And I remember Connor had Mrs. Lutzi that year for second grade. And she, remarkable, fabulous teacher. So I was thankful and really happy and rest assured she did an excellent job and he loved her.
Oh yeah, so many of the elementary school teachers are so good. Uh,
Mhm.
I didn't have you for second grade, but I had Mrs. Faldette, and her and Mrs. Blondie worked together quite a bit.
Good friends
Uh,
of mine. Yeah.
and then I had Waldschmidt after that, and she was great as well. And uh, yeah, so many good, nice teachers at all the schools. Uh, and
I agree.
is that common? Like, or is that
I don't
not?
know because that's been the only school I've been at. However, I would think it would be because like I said, and again, honestly, I was just so impressed with all the talent and teachers and we all got along so well. I don't know if everybody can say that. I mean, it's just such a blessing.
Well, I think it speaks about our community as well, shows what our community is like as well by the teachers and the students. Uh, that's a big part of what makes our community the way it
I
is
agree. And
how the
I
kids end
also
up.
I also think too, when you have administration, whether it be in that specific school, principal, vice principal, and administration, superintendent, things like that, dean, whatnot, when they're, when, what's the saying? When you give respect, you get respect. And if an administrator would come to me and say, hey, I needed you to move a grade level, or I needed this, or I needed that, or could you do this extra, whatever, it seemed we all did it because they were so supportive and good to us, that I just always wanted to make them proud too. And, help them out when they needed because they've been, respectful and supportive of us. And I've just always felt that. And I'm pretty sure many of the colleagues did too, if not all of them. And what a great feeling and a great job and school district to be a part of, to have that feeling.
Well, I was always very, very impressed as Joe was going through school. I don't know, it just always felt comfortable.
Mhm.
All I can do is compare this to where I'm originally from, which is Indiana, and there's some very, very good teachers there as well, of course.
Mhm.
But I don't know, I never felt that unity
Mhm. Yeah.
you have here
Yeah.
you know,
That's a good word, Tim. Unity.
with
That's
the schools and the just the environment, the community,
Mhm.
all kind of, I always felt they were all kind of in lockstep.
Mhm.
So if you enjoy teaching so much, why did you decide to retire?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I planned on going at least 2 more years. But my oldest son, Luke, he and his wife were going to be expecting, and I was thrilled, but still hadn't, I still was on, I'm, going to teach another year or two at least. And so when I said, you better have good childcare, being in that profession, he said, oh yeah, I have it. And he mentioned me. So I was like, oh, okay. Um, I, was thrilled to be uh, becoming a grandma. And so when he said, would you watch the baby 1 or 2 days a week? And I said, absolutely. So um, that year, that was my last year, was hard, but I knew I was excited to be a grandma. So then when I went in to sit down with the administrator, I said, I went in and Mr. Sparmer said, have a seat. And so I sat down and the floodgates poured open. I just started crying. And I said, I was couldn't stop crying. And he said, "Why are you crying?" I said, "Because I'm going to retire." And he said, "Well, that should be a happy time." And I said, "I know, but I wasn't like planning on it. And it just was hard for me." And he said, "Well, you've put in this many years, you've done a good job." He goes, "But now go out on top. This is the best time to go. You're going out on a good note." And he just said all the right things to make me kind of go, "You're right." And then it ended up being just the best year. I had a, wonderful class, and the families were supportive, and they threw me a, a grandma shower, so to say, and a retirement shower. And it was a wonderful class and family so that was a huge reason. And so now it's just been spending more time with my family, and my mom, who's in her golden years, spending more time with her, running her to appointments and errands. I'm I'm still really, really busy, but it's all fun busy. I still feel, that I am teaching yet in some ways, and because I'm still making a difference in my granddaughter's life, and I'm, trying to teach things, to her, and yeah, so keeping busy.
Is that your only grandbaby?
Yes. Yeah, she's 14 months.
So Connor doesn't have a bunch of babies you don't know about or anything?
No, he better not, Joe. I hear you laughing there. Nope, he's in Oshkosh at college. He's a junior there. Yeah, and Joe, his friend, is very supportive when Connor's got things going on. Joe attends, and he's a very supportive friend. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, Connor's definitely an interesting friend. Very, he's pretty different from all my other friends in a good way, not a bad way. Yeah, but yeah, I've been friends with him since fourth grade.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not many people that you can say, oh, you've been friends for
Right.
such a long period of time, especially during school and then after high school, especially, going through to still be friends after COVID, after graduation, happening all at the same time for us.
Right.
That's hard. So how was COVID? How did that go for teaching? That must have been uh awful. That must
Well,
have
it
been
was quite a
difficult.
shock when you can't prepare for something and it's just boom, Yeah, my husband and I, and actually Connor, were on a trip in the Bahamas, and we had met some other people on the trip, and some were on the school board, and they said, "Oh, our school's shut down," and blah blah blah. And I was like, "What?" And when we had left on the trip, COVID was sort of a thing. I mean, you had heard about it, but it wasn't real terrible in our community. I mean, it was just kind of getting out there. And I don't know, by the time we got home, places were shutting down, and we had gotten an email 2 days after we got home saying, you're going to have to be coming into school to, pick up our books, our reading book, our math book, and whatnot, to teach from home. And yeah, it was quite a shock. It was, the school bought some programs to install and download on each of the child's computers, and we weren't maybe trained as much as, they did the best they could with such short time, but we managed, and they helped us through as much as we could. But lessons were quite different And again, I tried to make them really fun. I remember one time, just for a story reading hour, I put a little pop-up tent in the living room and went in and had I told all the kids, go each get a flashlight, go grab a flashlight, grab a book, and then we do little scavenger hunts and go find this, that, and bring it back and everybody share. So, besides the reading and whatnot and math lessons, I tried to do some other fun things because they were just stuck at home. And I know there's learning that I'm sure the families, tried to help out and do each day at home. But yeah, it was different.
So were you over Zoom like this for a class period, or was it not a Zoom meeting, and did you just have everything online for them to do on websites or
Yeah,
whatnot?
it was both. It was online for a period of time each day. It wasn't from, the whole entire day, but it was online, and then we'd put lessons on too. So, and, the families, I felt so bad for all the families because they were also thrown into this too, that, they were learning too. And, not everybody maybe had Wi-Fi. So then that was another issue, where they'd have to have like a router or something. Someone would take that over to their house and set that up. And so, kudos to the families that did everything too and were supportive and helping us out too, and setting up and encouraging their child to get on every day. And
I don't know how you were even able to keep the kids motivated, because I went for it as a senior, and we we didn't have Zoom meetings as much like it sounds like you did. But there was stuff online sometimes.
yeah,
Like for the most part, it seemed like, we're gonna throw in the towel,
Mhm.
we're gonna be done with it. You're a senior anyway. Uh,
Yeah,
that's kind of what somewhat happened. But since it's second grade and that's so different, and they're also
right.
younger, that's a situation that's hard to
Yeah,
understand fully. And I feel like if I was in second grade, I would get really discouraged because I wouldn't want to go on my computer every day.
yeah,
I would rather play video games at that point.
right. I think it's the opposite. They wanted to be on. They were bored. They were, you know, I could see where that would be harder for high school. Yeah, because there's more things to do. I think the kids sitting around and they were bored and they wanted to be on. So there were times when I'd have 12 at a time. And the hard part of that is they all wanted to talk at once. So it was kind of like, okay, one at a time. So they would raise their hand and I would call on them, and they would then tell their story, and some wanted to talk longer, so I'd have to put my little timer or, tell them, okay, we have to move on. And they just wanted to see each other's faces. So they were excited to get on. And some would be begging me, or I'd have parents emailing me saying, they really want to get on and see all their friends. So I'd have to set up another time. And so sometimes, just to keep them up and happy, I would even say, okay, we're going to do an ice cream party. And we would do an ice cream party. And I'd say, okay, everybody get their ice cream. Well, if you don't have ice cream, just get, a cookie or something or popcorn. And we did a popcorn party too.
I can't say enough. I mean, I really appreciate what you've done, and I certainly appreciate all the educators here.
Yes.
You.
Did an outstanding job. You mentioned Joe's class and all Joe's friends, like Connor. I mean, that's a wonderful group of people.
Yeah,
Really,
I
really is.
agree. I agree.
And yeah, I was just thinking about the parade we had for them. So,
Oh, yeah. It just, and I feel, even with you guys, the Drakes, that I've made friendships and still have kept those with many of the adults and the students, and they're still friends. And you're right, that was a difficult year.
No, I just, because they weren't really weren't going to do anything for the seniors. And that parade was amazing. All the people, just, standing, holding signs everywhere. Hats off to our community, though. I mean, even though obviously that sort of thing definitely divided people,
Right.
you know, but at the same token, now that it's kind of subsided and so
Mhm.
forth, the same people that were divided are now back together again.
Before we go, maybe if you don't mind, could you tell a funny Connor story?
Oh, there's so many.
Got to be difficult because he's so quiet.
That's funny.
Uh,
I know one thing that he this past fall, and Joe supported him and he's now in Oshkosh, and he was in the theater production Grease, and he was Kaniki, and he as a mother sitting in the audience, he didn't warn me of this scene, but he's sitting on a bench with Rizzo, and he's making out with Rizzo, and I'm like, Connor, oh my goodness. And it wasn't just a kiss, it was full-fledged makeout sesh. So um that was something. But then he did get the scene where they're on the car and do the grease lightning scene, and usually that's the Danny part, but in the play, so he comes driving in this teeny little red or whatever, this car, and he's doing that scene. So that was kind of fun. Not a funny story, but
Well, that's the toughest part of the musical, Grease Lightning, I would think. That's the toughest song. And a lot of dancing, moving around while you're singing. That's not
yeah,
easy.
Is he enjoying Oshkosh?
he loves it. Absolutely loves being there. Has made a lot of friends, and the theater department is fabulous, and he's enjoying life.
That's good to hear. Always liked Connor a lot. Good guy.
Thank you. I like him too.
You're his mom, I would hope.
Yeah. Thank you for being on PodPaca. I think if we learned anything today, it was that no matter the pros and cons, if you truly like doing something, that great to be able to do it for a long time and to be able to take so much positive out of it, even though there are like negatives at time, but there's just so few negatives, even, during a pandemic or
Mhm.
with the technology advancing and making things more difficult than maybe when you started. Uh, but yeah, I think that's something that hopefully people find in other careers outside of teaching as well. I think that it's so cool to see that teachers truly love their job like this, because you're not the only one. There's so many
Right.
that are like yourself. But I know there's others that feel like this in other occupations, but I feel like you see this the most in teachers, and that's why teachers should be appreciated the most, because being a teacher is such a difficult job. Taking care of all those kids at once, that's like some people can't even imagine. Uh,
Right.
so kudos to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you again for being on PodPaca, and make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and to support us by rating us 5 stars and reviewing us on podcast platforms, and liking videos on YouTube, and doing what you can to help support us. Those all help us, and those are all free. So thank you again for listening, and thank you again for being on, Lisa.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you for having me. Thank you so much.